You joined us for Rain of Blood, and together we made it rain bigger and better than we could have ever imagined. So now, join us for a second blazing inferno of knowledge and exploration. You're listening to Rain of Fire, the scorching sequel event to Rain of Blood, where we're going to delve into the world of fire play education and safety as we prepare for the upcoming Rain of Fire event. Join your host, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and Ember Solaris as we ignite your curiosity and stoke the flames of passion with discussions, interviews, and authentic insights from around the globe. Together, we're three flames united in one mission to make quality kink education more accessible and open pathways to conversation and connection about edgeplay topics around the world. But before we dive into these sizzling topics, a content warning. Rain of Fire discusses mature themes, explicit content, and practices related to BDSM and fireplay. So listener discretion is advised, and this is an adult-only podcast. Other topics may include mental health, trauma, consent, and more. So please be sure you're in a good spot to engage in these topics before continuing to listen. So, grab your fire gear, stoke the flames of curiosity, and let's embark on this crackling journey together. Welcome to Rain of Fire.
Hey, amazing fire starters. You are with Miss Kitten in her dungeon in Cape Town. And tonight I have an incredible Mistress T from Canada joining me to chat about hot things. Mistress T, welcome to our podcast and thank you so much for your time. And it's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a pleasure for me.
Oh, we're so excited, and just talking about fire puts a smile on my face. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty on fire, maybe you can just tell our listeners a little bit about Mistress T and a little bit about your kink journey and how you got to this place that you're now at.
Oh, yeah. So I've been in the kink lifestyle community for about 15 years. I've been a personal trainer for much longer than that. So the transition from personal training to dominant to mistress actually was quite natural for me because I'm naturally always been very sadistic, and I get to do it in my day-to-day and in all parts of my life, which is wonderful. So I started off with flogging. And so flogging, I kind of specialize in flogging. That's my and impact play. I do a lot of demos. I do a lot of introduction to safe BDSM because one of my passions is getting people involved in the BDSM community safely. Because as we know, there's a lot of predators and people that say they're DOMs and they really they're not, and they're not safe people to be around. So I've been really focused on trying to give people the knowledge that so they can vet people, they can go about their journey safely. My fire journey started a couple of years ago. So we took some classes on fire play. And then I had all of a sudden there was a market and there was a fire flogger, and of course it's flogging and fire. So I have to learn how this works. So that it's kind of, and when I go down a road hard. I need to learn everything about it. And then I've developed products around it. So I also develop, I have my own line of floggers and impact toys. I have a website and it's Totalsubmission.ca. Yeah, that's, I don't want to take up the whole hour just talking about me.
That's amazing. I want to get more info on your floggers. Do you have a fire flogger in your range?
I do. Yep. Yeah. I've developed a fire flogger with all sorts of interchangeable options, which is nice.
That is super exciting. I'm going to get your details after this podcast, and then I'm going to connect our listeners at the event as well. I'd like to chat to you about the vendor stuff, but we can do that a bit afterwards. And I'm going to drop your link into this podcast bio, so anybody who's looking for a fire flogger can definitely connect with you. I have to tell you, I have zero fire experience besides flash cotton, which I love, but we really really have nothing in our community. So I've been asking all these questions, and I asked Solaris what she would suggest on me. I'm desperate to start fire flogging. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, but just the production of the flogger is almost impossible in our community. We, just buying the pieces. I might have to sell a kidney to buy the Kevlar stuff that the import is just huge, and more than the import, it's the postage. It's like I think $100 for a meter of Kevlar. So it's ridiculously priced. But so I think Solaris misunderstood my question, because I was like, how do I get better at flogging, meaning fire flogging? So she said, no, you get a mop head and you put a stick on it and then you practice with that. And I was like, okay. And in my head, I'm trying to think how I'm going to fit this mop head in a thing of fuel and light it. And isn't that going to be heavy? And then thank God I asked her, because I was like, and then can I light the mop head? And she was like, hell no, that is not what I meant at all. So always good to clarify things, but I thought you'd have a smile with that, because you can just imagine this kitten in Cape Town throwing this mop head around that weighs a ton with fuel and setting everything on fire.
Including yourself.
Yeah, I've done that already. I have no arm hair left after my week of experiments. The things I've learned about fire include the fact that when you burn your hair, you get to smell it twice. Once when you do it, and again when you shower. Like it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So
wow.
You speak about safety in the community, and I'm also a huge advocate for that, and teaching people what consent really means so that they can make great choices and have their own autonomy in situations, particularly in fire play. How do you encourage newbies to find to look for safe precautions, and what are those safe precautions that you're encouraging? And what advice do you have for safety in fire play for new people like the crazy kitten who's about to set the world on fire in Cape Town?
I would definitely find someone who's an expert in it, definitely, because it is edge play. It is dangerous, right? Because you are flinging fire around, so there's a lot of dynamics to come into, and you don't go into a fire flogging scene with a top and a bottom. It's a team, and if you don't have that team, or if someone says, "Can I fire flog you?" and it's just you and them, you're going to get burnt, and it is not a safe situation. So at minimum, you would have your top, your bottom, and you would have a spotter. I would have more people than that myself, because it's fire. You're flinging fire around, so your fuels are important. So you need to ask questions. You have to have your, what's their experience? What is the plan for the scene? What happens? What's the plan if something goes wrong? Like, how many fire extinguishers are there? What type of water? How am I going to protect my hair? How, what happens if I do get burnt? Because there is a possibility of that. And asking those questions, and of course you've got your safe words and all that stuff, and communicating, and that's where you have. Because when you are fire flogging, you're flinging fire around, and as the person who is doing the flogging, you can't stop. Once you start, you keep going. So to get in there and be checking on your bottom would be difficult, if not almost impossible, because just the nature of fire flogging. So you would definitely want to have a person there who's checking in on them, who's communicating with you, so if they're not doing well or if something happens, because shit happens, and that's the nature of. And like I said, fire flogging definitely qualifies as edge play because it is dangerous.
I think all of the fire play qualifies as edge play. I'm learning very quickly that the stuff, even in my really simple setups at home, I haven't actually put a body into it. I'm just learning about fire as a medium, and even that requires a spotter. Like, it's not something I'm super keen to do alone, and I don't advise anybody to be doing it alone. It's something that is absolutely incredible as a medium. but can go wrong in second and a half. There's not even like big time. All the other kinks I've participated in, you can put them down, you can have a snack,
Yes.
you can come back, you can pick it up again, and you can almost manage them on your own. But anything to do with fire, I love what you said about it's a team sport. I keep saying it's like a poly relationship. Like there are lots of different connections, and it is a relationship. Everybody's got to be communicating and chatting to one another. So I'm learning how to create like a poly fire team at home, so that
that's
all on the same page.
Necessary. Yes. Like when I sell the fire floggers, like I have a list of everything that you need to do this safely, because you can't just go, because there's so many elements to it. But yeah, if you can get like your poly fire flogging crew that you can play with on a regular basis, that would be amazing. We don't have that option. It's just the two of us. But when we travel around, we do events. But then we do communicate, and we're really, really clear about who does what. And it's never done lightly. It's always taken very seriously.
Yeah, and the other thing and you've mentioned it a couple of times, that I'm picking up from everyone and picking up through my own experience, is identifying the communication needed in the scene. This is the first time in kink I've needed to give everybody the words to use, almost like the spotter needs to not be screaming fire, because that's useless to me at that point. I know there is fire. He needs to be telling me where the fire is and which part of me is burning at that point, because I can't, sometimes I'm not quick enough to see what's happening. So having a understanding of communication for the first time in kink is not just a luxury. It's now absolutely critical to have everybody speaking the same language in that group and communicating well. And it's quite fun. We've been running some fire drills, not with actual fire, just with the safety equipment, so that we know how to use it. Because all of this stuff, we're a whole bunch of needle players. So all of the stuff is super foreign to us. Like first of all, we don't hit anything in the dungeon. We don't move in a rush. Everything's quite slow and steady. And now you've got to sort of pick up a towel and whack somebody with it. And even just doing that takes skill. And it's just learning a whole bunch of new stuff. It's quite fun. I've got a latex pony. I'm practicing rolling him up in my fire blanket as a burrito. So I'm quite good at that. What are your sort of green flags for the consent negotiation around fire? When you're starting to negotiate with somebody, what are positive things that you look for in a negotiation with a bottom?
Well, the big thing is enthusiasm. Like you can't come into consent-wise, well, I don't know, or you're not sure, or, it's that, and I've been fortunate. Everybody's been is super excited. They're enthusiastic. They want to try it, and then it's just a matter of watching. Okay, so yeah, you're super excited, and we don't want to get too far into frenzy, right? Because there's safety precautions that have to come as a bottom. They don't have as many safety precautions other than communication. Other than the big thing is you have to, because we always provide a thing, water with towels, and they have to get a wet towel and put that on their hair. That's their job. That and communication. And then when you're actually flogging them, you don't actually want to stay on them too long, because you will burn them. But that's the enthusiasm and the communication, because the scene is very short. It never lasts more than 2.5 minutes at the most. And then, chatting before with them, chatting after, and giving them the options. If this isn't working, you need to, and that's where the communication with the spotter comes in. So, I find it's getting the spotter to understand more than the bottom, because they need to know that they're wiping them down and they're not caressing them, and they're not getting creepy, they're not getting weird. They need to be quick, and they need to be out of the way most of the time. But when you're off of them, they need to be wiping them down, and how to wipe them down. And then again, you have another person also with a fire extinguisher who's overseeing, or two of them, and sometimes three of them. But it's that enthusiasm that they want to try this. Like we've been experimenting with fire bubbles as well, which is also super fun. But it's that.
Tell me about fire bubbles.
Fire bubbles. It's this mixture, and you're creating bubbles with a gas, and then you would put it on your arm or whatever. I would stay away from clothes and stuff like that unless they're wet. And then you just light it on fire. And then it actually goes up really quick, but it's really fun. So we've got an event coming up here in Kelowna in a couple of weeks. So I'm hoping we can do fire bubbles at that event. And the problem with fire play is they don't let you do it at a lot of events because of either the rules of the facility or, there's lots of things, or they're not sure because you are flaming fire around. So you have to, there's not a lot of places we can do it, which is unfortunate. And then, where we live too, we're always at risk of forest fires. So we're probably a couple of weeks away from a fire ban as it is to our area. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to get.
I hear your fire ban. We also, it's summertime for us. We have very dry, very, very dry bush. We have winter rain, and summer is fire season for us. And because of our strong winds, it's devastating. So we also have, we also battle with that. So I understand that. And I understand the venues being strict about it. I think that's fair. I'm not sure I would allow a whole bunch of strangers in my house to do fire. At this point, my partner's not even allowing me to do fire in the house. So I'm really lucky though. My garden's gravel, and there's absolutely no risk of me burning anything except myself. So my next question was to ask you if you faced any challenges, but even just the venue thing is a challenge.
Right.
And any misconceptions about fire that come up often that you have to chat about in the community?
The biggest one I think is people think it's easier than it is, and they come into it like all they hear is flogging, and they think about it because there's in a lot of cases it's just the top and the bottom. You can go ahead and do your flogging, and the safety precautions are much bigger than that, and people don't realize that because it's like there's no way it's just you and the bottom. You have to have more people than that, and also that your flogging skills better be bang on. Because if you're not very skilled at flogging, this is going to go bad for everyone. And then too, so I started doing single flogging, and then I've started Florentine with them. But I made a smaller version, and I practiced, and I did hit myself a couple of times, and it was just there's so much practice involved because you don't want to be letting yourself on fire, and you're flinging fire, so you better be safe with it. Like I had a friend who came to buy a couple of fire floggers. He's trying two at the same time. They're not lit, and he's coming awfully close to his head with the one. So I'm like, I wouldn't start with that. Or you need to work on your Florentine and watch, because he didn't even know he was coming that close to his head. So there was no way he wouldn't have lit his hair on fire the way he was doing it. So it's a matter of practice. People don't realize how your skills have got to be bang on. So if you're doing things the wrong way, or like when I started, one of my first scenes, like we had everything, and thankfully we videotaped so I could see what happened, because she did getting burnt in the process. So we dealt with that. But the problem was my aim was too good in one spot. So, and then I was on for a little bit too long. So it's all been a learning process about how many times you can hit them. So having two bottoms, I find is optimal. But so if you're like me, or you're really good aim, so you better be moving around, because otherwise you're going to burn them in that spot. But it's much bigger than people downplay it like it's not that big a deal, which is surprising because it's fire.
I have to say, like, I'm echoing everything you said. Like, I haven't managed to put my fire on anybody, but I've just been a bit awed about the power of it. And it's one thing knowing how to use the equipment, and then when you add fuel to it, the weight of the equipment changes dramatically, and it's Absolutely. Like a whole new ball game. It's like, and now you're relearning how to do it. So, for a while, I just dipped it in water so that I could just get a feeling of what I was holding in my hand before I decided to add fire to it. And I like what she said about downgrading to something slightly smaller. That was something that I did automatically in the beginning. My first wand was when I put it into anything liquid, it became so super heavy. And then when I lit it the first time, there was this enormous amount of fire fire coming off it. And it was just I'm sure in 6 months' time or a year's time, that'll be great. And I'll love every second of it.
Right.
But at the moment, it stops me from being able to process things quickly enough in the moment. And it just becomes too much to manage. So I think that's a great tip for everybody out there who wants to play with fire. There's start small, start with something manageable and that you can enjoy it, because it shouldn't be terrifying while you're playing with it. And the second I felt too awed by the situation, I realized that the situation was just too big for me and I needed to go smaller, which is probably the first time in kink I've ever done that.
Well, and that's because you're dealing with something that's very dangerous. And you should be in awe of the fire, and you should respect the fire, because things can go. And there's no reason why you can't. Yet you can go with a smaller flogger or smaller options. I make them, so I would make them a smaller option for myself, because when I started with the Florentine, or if I'm just, because we've done lots of R&D with design as well as fuels. So having the smaller options, because we look at things like heat. We have to look at things like cast off. Cast off is really, really important, because you've got people watching the scene. You don't want them covered in fuel. So cast off is really important as well. And then you're right, the weight of it, the ones that I make they'll have 4 fuel pods on them, and it's got quite a long chain to it, and the handle is metal too. So the weight of this thing is very heavy. And then you add the fuel in it, and then you add the fire, which adds the drag. So it is exhausting. We're planning on doing we're doing some fire flogging in Vancouver in July. So my partner, because I get a little bit ambitious, and I've done scenes where I've done four scenes back to back, and then he's like, "Well, you get a little bit sloppy because you're getting tired in the 4, so I'll do 3 this time, just so not sloppy, because then you have to get your game face back on, because if you start to get sloppy, you're going to hit yourself, and things are going to go south very, very quickly. So you better be focused. You have to have your game plan, and you have to realize what your strengths and weaknesses are. Like I said, you need to, if you're really like me and you can aim in one spot really, really well, you need to learn to move around, because you can't be hitting one spot consistently the whole time.
I love that. And that mention of, I label that under capacity, and I talk about capacity a lot in my vanilla work and a lot in kink, understanding what you have physical and mental capacity for at an event is super important. And I think until you've been in kink for a while, you don't realize how much capacity something like this takes out of you and what it takes to recover from it. So you need to be going in there with, a 7 or an 8 out of 10. You can't be a 4, because then your recovery as well is impacted by what you're spending in a night. So you need to be able to budget your capacity and say, realistically, can I spend this tonight? Is this really what I have in excess? Because otherwise I can't adult very well on a Monday morning, and that unfortunately is not an option. So wish it was, but it's not. So I think that's I'm hearing a lot of self-awareness, and I'm sure it comes down to your personal trainer stuff as well, because I can just imagine you teaching that, and I think you would be really good at it. So I don't think you'd let anybody get away with murder.
It does cross over really well, and it's because I know how to read people as well. And so when I'll do flogging classes, and it's very much for them. It's very much a workout. It's just, okay, we're gonna do this drill for a while, and then we're doing that drill for a while. And in the end, most of them are Florentine, where they're they start off with limited, if any, flogging skills. But by the end of that hour and a half, I've got most of them, not all of them, Florentine. But it's a drill. We're gonna do this and this, and also too, because as soon as I get into the class, they're sitting down. Everybody get up. We don't watch flogging. We learn flogging, and you don't learn it by watching. So so it's all a process. And take a break, get some water. This is a workout. This is a lot more work than you think it is, but it is amazing. So when I do demos of just flogging demos without the fire flogging, I've got two floggers that I use at the same time. They're 50 inches long. I've got another one that's 8 pounds. I'll use pixel whips and do Florentine with them, and I'll do big scenes which are exhausting. And the one scene I had 21 bottoms, and so it's all about training because I tend to, when I have outside of fire flogging, I do tend to overdo it a little bit. So because I'm in the moment and have so much fun, and at some point I have to realize, okay, I can't do this anymore. But it's just it fuels me so much, and we have so much fun. And I'm fortunate that when I go to different cities forward to events, that I have a series of bottoms that I've got to know in each city. So in this communication, and we always have I can't say enough about how much fun I have doing it. And most of them are quite eager to try the fire flogging. And it's been nice because I have had experience with them, so I know where they're at, and their communication is great.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Again, you're touching on some really important topics, that understanding and knowing your bottom a little bit, having open communication where you're both able to express yourselves easily in a situation. And then just how you smile when you talk about flogging. It's absolutely divine. And I can hear the joy in your voice and when you talk about fire. So it's a bit contagious. So what advice do you have for individuals who are stepping into this for the first time, and how do they get involved? So a lot of us don't. I know that everybody keeps saying, and you mentioned it before, like find a professional. But for a lot of us, like in my community, there's just nobody. I've never seen, besides a video, I've never seen fire flogging. I still have a million questions on it. Like, where do you go if there isn't anybody?
See, and that's well, I guess. Well, okay, so because that's where I started, right? Because very, very experienced in flogging and teaching flogging, and then I was at a market where I was vending, and then somebody I knew was selling fire floggers. So my head popped up, and it's okay. I have to try this. So I bought this fire flogger, and it came with absolutely no instruction whatsoever. So then I need to figure this out. So I started doing my research, and then through a lot of R&D and figuring things out, I did figure it out. So, but that was it was a good better part of a year for me to figure it out. The only other option is like through the Rain of Fire. What you're doing too is watching these videos and and then just taking baby steps when you do try it, like buying smaller fire floggers so you can get used to it. Because what we do with the ones that I have, like it's standard, like I've got the handle has that bearing in it, so it spins. Like if you people that do a lot of fire spinning, what they have to do, because you have to have a chain, because you can't have you need this buffer between you and the fire, because you don't want to.
Yeah.
So chain is very important. But what happens is a lot of handles is because they don't spin, so you have to go one way and then you have to back it off because the chain will bind on itself. So the ones that I make, they have bearings in it, so that you can. It's fine. It'll spin freely, and then watching which fire floggers themselves. Like, so I have. So I've got the handle, I've got the chain, I've got a connector, and at the end I have fuel pods. So the fuel pods can be changed at any time because they're good for about 6 to 10 burns, as long as you're not letting them sit and burn, because then they'll burn up. But I have smaller ones and bigger ones. So the smaller ones can last anywhere from a minute and a half to 45 seconds, and the big ones can last for 2.5 minutes. So it's picky. So I would recommend when someone's starting, use the smaller fuel pods. Maybe only use 2 instead of 4, and then just practice with it. Yeah. So then, I mean, it's unfortunate in your area. I mean, if you want to pay for me to come out, I would totally teach a class.
I promise you, if I ever get someone to buy my kidney, I will get you here in like a heartbeat. Like you'll be the first name I'll call. Like it's,
excellent.
Yeah. And the one thing I just wanted to say to the listeners, and I think it's important to note, is that once that fire's lit, the floggers have got to keep moving. I don't know if it's the same as with fire poi, but you can't. Fire travels up, so if you're just standing there with the fuel burning at the end of the flogger, so is that part of the reason why the fuel pods only burn for so long, or you only use fuel pods that only burn for so long, or is it just because the experience is so intense that it's only a 2.5 minute experience?
It's based on the design and the experiences. It's in my experience with using them, because they're heavy and because it's so, because you're dealing with a metal handle, you're dealing with chain, and then you're dealing with a fuel soaked flogger. So they are heavy. So to go longer than 2.5 minutes would be exhausting. And again, you can't just have it hang there and burn, because it'll travel up. So to deal with a smaller fuel pod. Yeah.
Your arm will go up pretty quickly. We do quite a bit of fire whip, and the fire whip's fantastic when it's moving. It's not great when it's not moving.
Right. And that's exactly the same. Yeah. But I would definitely say, because again, it's heavier and you can't stop moving. So something that only burns for just over a minute is optimal to start. And
awesome.
It's so fantastic if you've got the right fuels. That minute is just the sound that it makes and the motion of it. It's exhilarating, right? So to start off, a minute is more than enough.
I'm learning a lot about the sound of fire. I'm learning a lot. It's beautiful, but there are some sounds, like the sound of burning hair, that I've noticed, that crackling noise. Like I'm automatically tuned into that now. Like I wasn't in the beginning. Now, like I hear that crackling noise and I know I'm on fire somewhere and I've got to deal with it. Yeah. So you get quite a few noises in fire that are important. Like it's a beautiful that when you light that fuel, it's the most beautiful sound. Yeah. It's gorgeous. But and then the you can almost hear the burn change when there's no more excess fuel, and it's sort of at stage 2, and then it changes again when it starts to run out of fuel and it starts to flicker just before you want to put it out, or I want to put it out. But then there's also the sound of my hair crackling, which is definitely like I was a bit like blasé about that in the beginning. Now I'm super sharp with that. Like I can hear that noise over anything, and I can then action it. So you do get quicker about it.
And one element that is relevant too. So if you have a bottom who's very hairy, I mean, you have to take care of that too. You would, and we've done that. It can be quite, with some people having to shave their backs can be a lot of work, but otherwise, you're going to have the hair burning for sure.
Is it really necessary to shave them? Can you get away with? I mean, you'd obviously have the smell of burning hair, which is a joy on its own, in its own category of life. But is that something that is completely limiting, or if they are happy to be singed a little bit, is that something that they can experience safely?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's where the spotter comes in, and then it is up to. But if someone who is really hairy, I would definitely take that down a level, so you're not quite as much. Just the smell alone would be a bit overwhelming especially for people watching. But I mean, it's everyone. Yes, like I said, if I was going to someone who is really, really hairy, I would definitely take that down a bit. But if someone is just a little bit and they're fine with that burning, but again, that's where your spotter comes in, where you want to be wiping them down before you start, and you want to be, because you only hit them so many times, and then the spotter will wipe them down, and they need to be consistent with it. But that's definitely an area you could burn. Leave it and make it a bit more dramatic, but that's really up to you.
Bob's really on fire.
It's another way of hair removal.
It is. I mean, they should pay extra for that, because and it's less painful than a wax, I would imagine. I don't think
this is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of people, and I think I'm trying to put a consent card together for my fire play, but the one thing I've picked up from you that's definitely going in the card, and I picked it up last night as well, was that there's more than one person in the scene that's going to touch you. So the bottom needs to be aware of that. And I think that is definitely something. It's probably the first kink where I've ever really, besides a double dom scene where you're negotiating deliberately, but this is definitely something that the person needs to be okay with. And I would imagine they need to know before it happens, so they're not surprised by the extra set of hands on their back halfway through the scene.
Oh, absolutely. And it's part of because they need to know what's going on too. Good, because part of the thing is they're facing away from you, so they don't see what's going on, right? So you've got, and that's where they need to know that this person's going to take care of them. They're going to be there. They are going to be wiping them down, and then just making sure that I've had issues with one of my bottoms. He was a bit too sensual in the it was you're not having sex with them or not making love. You are wiping the fire off of them. So you need to be deliberate and you need to be fast. So it's just and then in cases too, as far as communication is touching, you need to communicate this. Well, I mean, I took a first aid course a couple of weeks ago, and my partner doing the choking, I thought he was like the way he was touching me was like, this is not appropriate for choking. But in the same time, communication on both sides that this person will touch you, and this is how this should happen. If things don't happen, then there's that communication again, where someone can't do this appropriately, then maybe we don't do this again.
Okay, I like that. Are you prepared to talk to me a little bit about fuel? It's something that we're obviously countries away from each other, so our fuels all differ. But what do you suggest as fuel for fire flogging?
So again, cast off is really important because if you go straight isopropyl alcohol, like you can use 91 or 99%, but you will have a lot of cast off because it's very thin. So we've done a lot of R&D, and we don't like that because, again, the cast off, so you need something with an oily base. So we'll add some lamp oil. We usually go lamp oil, camp fuel, and then if we're outside, we'll use a little bit of kerosene or 91% isopropyl alcohol. We've got a specific mixture. And if you add the lamp oil, you won't have as much cast off. Because
we found with the whip that the alcohol is almost useless. When you crack it, it just goes out. It doesn't keep burning. We tried the lamp oil. We tried here, but it is like literally like you have to sell a hand, a foot, and a kidney to be able to soak the whip 3 times. So it's really expensive. So the whip play that we do we're not touching anybody with the whip. So we're using our version of kerosene, which is paraffin.
Right. Yeah.
And it's something that has got it doesn't burn really quickly. It doesn't ignite really quickly. You've got to hold it over for a while to get it to light up, but it stays alight when you crack, because to keep that crack going. So I was interested to hear, because I was trying hard to imagine how the alcohol would keep burning while you swinging it. I think that it would go out in my head. I haven't actually swung anything. Did not swing the mop heads. So
no, good. Well, I didn't find it was too bad as far as burning with you go the straight 91 or 99. It's just the cast off was a much bigger issue. That's where the combination of the three, so the lamp oil, the camp fuel, and then the kerosene or the 91%, that combination in the right proportions seemed to work out really, really well for us, because when we do the outside fire flogging, we'll use the one with the kerosene because it's a little bit more it's more brilliant. It's like getting hit with the sun. It does have an odor to it though, so if we're doing ones inside, we pre-version then instead of the kerosene. It's just as a little bit because it creates that extra, but it does have a smell to it, whereas and it'll always have some smell because you're burning fuels. But when we do indoor, we'll add the 91% instead of the kerosene, and it seems to be a good mixture. So it lights quite nicely. It burns long enough, and it doesn't. It has got that brilliance to it. Where I find that the 91, and it doesn't have the cast off. You will always have a little bit, but if you go straight isopropyl alcohol, you'll have tons of cast off.
Okay, so again, the mop idea was really not a good one, and I'm very glad it didn't go there, because I think I would have coated the whole. I can.
Can you imagine
it? Yeah,
I can, and I just I hope that a fire department close by.
Oh dear. Your fire floggers are obviously, like I know from researching making them here, they're not cheap to make. They're not a cheap tool. How do you look after them, and what is some aftercare tips for the flogger? Because I think that it's important to keep your tools in good condition, and they're obviously something that bring you a lot of joy. So what is your routine with those?
Well, so again, I've got the several parts to it. So when it comes to, because you're only burning the fuel pods at the end, again, you don't want them to sit and burn because they will burn up and they'll be done. So when you're done the scene, we quite often will either put them in water or put them in a wet towel or something, and then just put them off to the side till later. And then as long as, and the big thing is that everything's not burning and everything's safely put, your fuels are put away here, everything's safe. And then when I get back to my workshop, I'll hang them up so that they can sit. And as long as they're hanging and in a dry place, they're fine. And I find too, they're good for about 6 to 10 burns, depending on if you're using appropriate fuels. And then you always want to be checking them between, because they are made with Kevlar, but it's a Kevlar webbing plus I'm using a Kevlar thread, which in and of itself will burn up. So you always want to be checking them. So especially that thread, because if that thread starts to come apart, or it's not, or part of it is burnt up, when you're you can get one flying off into the woods or whatever, or at someone. So just making sure that they're all in good shape before you start. Also too, with your connectors, whatever's connecting your fuel pod to the rest of it, make sure it's if you're using screw-on connectors, make sure they're tightened. The thing we found, we'll actually use a couple thick key rings on each one, because we don't have to worry about them coming apart, because the ones where you screw on, there isn't a way of keeping them tight, because you have to tighten them every time you do the scene. You need to tighten them again, and things like Loctite and stuff won't work because of the oils and the heat. It won't keep it tight. So it's always checking, because as soon as one looks like it's degraded, you're going to want to replace that one, because it could go flying off, and that can go really, really bad. But other than that, as long as you're checking them and hanging them when you're not using them, they should last a long time.
Bob's back is on fire, and the fire tops just released a cannonball of fire into the crowd. I can. It definitely, like, I'm a needle player deluxe, so my risk mitigation skills, like I have pages of risk mitigation. My pages for fire are I think I'm on 17 things that could possibly go wrong in the scene. And I think it's also a lot about being nervous, embracing a new kink and trying new things. But it's incredible. I don't think I'm going to be touching anybody with my actual fire for a long time, but I'm loving the journey with the medium.
It is so amazing.
What's next for you in fire? And do you have any bucket list things you still want to do with it?
At the moment, we're just playing. Like I said, we're playing with fire bubbles, and I'm not really sure. I'll probably look into developing some torches and some other things to do with fire. I'm not sure at the moment. We'll see what time I got to get my taxes done right away. So, and then I've got events, and then we'll be doing some fire flogging and some fire bubbles. The thing that I'm finding too is, because not a lot of people have seen fire flogging, and certainly haven't learned how to do it safely. So that seems to be the bigger focus right now, is to educate people and develop products that are safe and that people know how to use them and use them properly.
I love that. And I'm really sorry that you have to adult and do taxes. I have to experience that once a year as well. And it's pure torture. I do not consent to that on any level.
No, me neither. No.
So we are really looking forward to having you at Rain of Fire and seeing some of your fire flogging. I'm super excited because I haven't seen much. And I know that at your bottom for the scene, Bella is also super excited. And
she's amazing.
She can't stop recommending you, and she's so excited to have the experience. So definitely know that you have one enthusiastic bottom waiting for her flogging. And we're just really grateful for your support of our event and helping us promote safe and sane fire play. I don't know if fire play is ever sane, but safer fire play in our communities, and also just for the connection across the globe to communities who don't have the opportunity for education. Just really grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to all my listeners, I'm going to pop this Amazing Humans links to her shop because I think I'm going to get a fire flogger from her. And if you need something like that, have a look in the bio from the show notes, and you'll be able to connect. We'll also put her stuff up on the Reign of Fire Discord so that you guys can find her there as a vendor. To get onto our Discord, you need to get a Reign of Fire ticket. If you don't have a Reign of Fire ticket, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but it's time you get one before the early bird sale ends. And we're really looking forward to seeing you guys at our event and bringing you some more of our presenters in the meantime. So I am sending you lots of love and kitten kisses from my dungeon in Cape Town and from Mistress T in Canada. Good night.
Thank you.